The cafeteria was alive with the usual buzz of chatter and laughter, 100 voices bouncing off the tiled walls. At one corner table, a group of younger recruits whispered and smirked, their attention fixed on a woman sitting quietly by herself. Her jacket was old, its fabric faded and worn, the edges frayed, and the colors no longer sharp. It wasn't the standard issue one they all wore freshly pressed and crisp. To them, it was a relic, something out of place, just like the woman who wore it. Snide remarks slipped from their mouths, mocking her, poking fun at her outdated look. They didn't see the weight behind the jacket. They didn't know the battles it had endured. They didn't know the story sewn into that patch on her shoulder. Right finger if you believe in kindness, respect, and second chances. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Armed Forces Stories for more powerful and emotional tales. She sat silently, her hands clasped around a simple cup of coffee, pretending not to hear their laughter. She had faced worse in life than the arrogance of the young. Her eyes had seen the scorching deserts, the cold darkness of the mountains, and the pain of watching brothers and sisters fall in battle. But what stung wasn't their words, it was the reminder that time had changed, and the ones who once saluted her now walked past without recognition. To them, she was just another face, another figure on the sidelines of the military machine. She bore it with dignity, but deep inside, there was a loneliness that could not be ignored. The recruits grew bolder, one of them jokingly asking if she had picked up her jacket at a thrift store. Laughter erupted around the table. The woman didn't flinch. She had learned long ago the value of silence, the strength in restraint. But then something shifted in the room. A commanding voice called out as a 4-star general entered the cafeteria. The chatter died instantly, backs straightened, trays lowered, and every soldier turned to stand in respect. The general's steps echoed as he made his way forward. His eyes swept the room, scanning faces, before landing on the woman in the old jacket. And then he froze. The recruits looked on in confusion as the general's expression changed. His eyes locked onto the faded patch on her shoulder. To them, it was just a symbol barely visible through the wear and tear. To him, it was something else entirely. His breath caught for a moment before he moved closer, each step deliberate, the room thick with silence. And then, in front of the entire cafeteria, the general stopped, brought his hand to his temple, and delivered a salute. The young recruits stared in disbelief, their faces draining of color, as the reality sank in. That patch was not ordinary. It belonged to a unit so elite, so respected, that its members were whispered about in training halls but rarely ever seen. The woman wearing it had once been part of missions classified beyond the reach of ordinary records. She had earned it not through privilege, but through sacrifice, missions where survival was uncertain, where courage was measured by seconds, and where loyalty to her team meant more than life itself. That jacket, worn and faded, was not a relic of shame but a badge of honor. Every thread was soaked in the stories of nights no one dared speak of and victories that never made it to the news. The general's salute broke the dam. The room erupted in a hushed awe as whispers spread. Who was she? What had she done? Why did the general, a man of towering stature, stand in respect to her? The recruits who mocked her lowered their heads, their arrogance burning away under the weight of truth. The woman slowly stood, her posture steady, her eyes meeting the general's with quiet acknowledgement. She returned the salute, a gesture of mutual respect, though her face betrayed the weariness of someone who had carried far too much for far too long. In that moment, the cafeteria was no longer filled with noise or mockery. It was filled with reverence. The young soldiers realized they had laughed at a legend, at a warrior who had paved the path they now walked. They had mocked the scars of someone whose sacrifice allowed them the freedom to wear their pristine uniforms and carry their own pride. Shame washed over them, but with it came a lesson they would never forget. That jacket was not just clothing, it was history, honor, and the embodiment of resilience. As the woman sat back down, the general placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of unspoken gratitude. He said nothing more, but he didn't have to. His actions spoke louder than any words could. The recruits, humbled, left the cafeteria in silence, carrying with them a reminder that respect is not about appearances, but about the unseen battles someone has fought. That day, they witnessed the truth that legends don't always wear medals on their chest. Sometimes they sit quietly in corners, carrying their stories in worn jackets and faded patches. Right finger if this story touched your heart. Please like, share, and subscribe to Armed Forces Stories. It helps us bring more powerful, emotional, and true style stories to you. And before you go, tell us in the comments. Speech balloon, would you have recognized the patch, or would you have judged the jacket?